guys, today we are going to be talking about banking and accounting software. So that's really Kenneth's forte. So he's going to be telling us all about that stuff. But if you are not able to follow along or take notes right now, all of our checklists, all of our resources are on our website at www.havensconsulting.com. You can download those things for free. Like we always say, start with the resources, start with our videos, but always check with a professional.
Absolutely.
So let's get started. I think the banking part's going to be my favorite
All
because
right.
I love to spend money. So let's start with a business checking account. So tell us some things we may need to know.
For most, especially small businesses, the checking account you're going to get is going to be, for the most part, pretty comparable to a personal checking account. You're not going to get a lot of great features or anything like that, but you're not going to pay a lot of fees either. And usually you have to maintain a minimum balance. Usually it's around $5,000 or have a certain number of ACH transfers, which is so money in, money out. Will waive that fee. And the fee is usually not that much, $12, $15 a month if you do have to pay it. When you get a little bigger, there's some accounts that have some more features and they'll do what's called an account analysis fee. And those fees, depending on your balance, can be, anywhere from like you said, $15 to thousands. Worked at companies where that analysis fee was $20,000 a month, but that was a Fortune 500 company. So that's for most people starting out, just shop around, try and find one that's going to not charge you a monthly fee based on your situation. Your bank's probably got one. They've all got cute little names like Super Business Checking or Stone Checking or something. Just go talk to them, figure out what you got to do to get it set up. You're going to need to take some documents. If you want to know what those are, just go check out our legally forming a business and getting all that set up. And we kind of go through that document checklist, or you can, again, like you said earlier, go to our website, and I think that's on there on our resources page.
Okay, so you said a minimum balance of $5,000. So does that mean you have to have $5,000?
You have to have an average daily balance of $5,000. Now, that number changes between, banks, of course, and that's like one way you keep from paying the fee.
I see. So that's just to not pay the fees.
Most basics are generally like personals, and they may not even have a minimum balance requirement.
Okay.
But you're going to get a debit card, maybe 2 or 3 or whatever, but you're not going to get anything else.
What about checks?
Yeah, get checks. Don't get 500, get 30.
Yeah. I would jump in there and say, I think everyone should get a checkbook. There's going to be, we talked about this on a previous episode, but there's going to be a time on a night or a weekend where you need to make a purchase that is over your daily limit on your debit card. And you are going to have to come back or,
Yeah, because the bank's customer service won't be open.
Right.
Because it will always happen on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yes. And that may be fine. You may have to use a couple of credit cards or whatever. But if you could just write a check, then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
Right. Yeah, before we had checks, we ran into that a couple of times. And then we just were like, we're getting a checkbook.
Oh, I think what we should have said in the beginning, I know if you have been with us since the beginning, you've heard this on every episode, but please always keep your business and your personal checking accounts separate.
All money. Keep it all separate if you can.
Yes, if you can. If not, track.
Yeah.
All right. Do you think most of the new small businesses need a savings account?
Not probably. Okay. The one circumstance where I would say that you would is if you're setting aside money to pay taxes, for instance, like sales tax, income tax, quarterly estimated tax payments, you can, because then you can at least, while it's sitting there, because some of those will sit in there for a few months. You can earn some interest on that. Other than that, you're probably not super cash rich, and just having a separate account with cash sitting over there is probably not an option for most companies. But if that's a route you're going to go and separate out like a tax account or something, or, some sort of escrow account, then there's definitely reasons for it. But I think for 99% of new small businesses, probably not.
Okay. So I once heard that you should get 5 separate bank accounts for your
Oh,
business. What do you think about getting 5 separate bank accounts for your small business that makes almost no money in the beginning?
I think you're talking about, we'll call it P1. Yeah.
Yes.
Not a big fan personally. Not saying it doesn't work for people. Even if you're not following that particular strategy, that may be useful for you
Mm-hmm.
if you're not a particularly organized human. That may be advantageous to help you keep things. But if flip side of that coin is if you're not very organized, it may just make things a rat's nest of
Yeah.
chaos where you. So
From what I heard, it kind of sounds like to me when you get those envelopes and you mark each envelope with
yeah,
a like this is for groceries,
yep,
this is for gas, and then
exact same concept.
and you may do that for a month or two and then all of a sudden you realize money has gone from one to the other and you were going to put it back and you don't remember
Yep.
and then this one that you thought had money in it didn't have money in it. Is it kind of the same situation?
Yeah,
Could be.
we've encountered some people that kind of utilize this strategy, and what we've seen several times is these small businesses are cash poor,
Right.
and that's a reality. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't mean you have a bad business. That means
Yeah,
you have a new
absolutely.
business.
And a lot of people take the money that they have earned in that business and they put it back into the business.
Right.
So that is not just because you don't have a lot of money in the bank does not mean that you are not doing just fine.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely not a long-term situation you want to stay in, but when you're starting out, I mean, we should have a whole episode on, self expectations.
Right.
We're going to have one on setting expectations and boundaries with your clients, but just having your own kind of expectations of what is reasonable. And this is something that we're working on and talking about. This is a complete tangent here, but defining what success looks like.
Yeah.
Because if it's, I'll feel successful when X happens until X happens, and then you'll be like,
Yeah.
I still don't really,
Yes.
the imposter syndrome's still there, kind of. And, oh, okay, well, now I'll feel
Yep.
good when this happens. But there will always be a that,
Yep.
and you'll never get there. You'll just be chasing this next step, which is good
Yeah.
as a business owner, but not when it's beating yourself up and feeling inadequate. That's not going to do yourself any good. Being open to criticism and being able to be critical of yourself is an important skill, but you can really beat yourself up and demoralize yourself. I forgot who said it when talking about self-managed, like, I'm going to do XXXX today and I'm going to get all these things done, and then you feel so disappointed when you don't. You're not a good employee and you're a worse boss when you're, managing yourself like that. So give yourself some grace. That's hopefully why you're here. You're trying to learn some things. Everyone that knows anything in a business learned it at some point.
Yep.
So the fact that you didn't know it before, it's fine.
Yeah, that's great.
That's what you're here
learning a
for.
new thing.
Just don't ever stop learning.
Before we turn this one into a self-help episode, which I'm sure we will
Yep.
do, let's talk about business credit cards. What do you think about getting credit cards when you're first starting out?
I think it's a good idea if you can manage having credit cards.
Take a look at yourself. Think about how you have run your life thus far. When I was younger, I got into credit card debt. I
same.
could not handle that. Our daughter is fantastic with money.
Right.
She just came out walking great with money.
Yeah.
It's just something that she,
Very frugal.
yeah, she's great. So just look at yourself. Can I handle that?
Right.
Kind of.
Or am I going to start buying stuff I really shouldn't buy
Yep.
that I talk myself into? Well,
Yep.
we really need this $1,500 You don't.
Yep.
You don't.
Yeah. I mean, even in the beginning when we were first starting out, I had to talk myself out of supplies
Yep.
because I love school supplies.
You do.
My office is full of school supplies. When the big kids were growing up, I had a huge art room full of school supplies.
Yep.
So, I mean, I could have racked up $10,000 for a company that's almost exclusively on the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just look at yourself.
It definitely makes sense because it can really help with cash flow. So you can kind of front load your expenses, your monthly expenses on there, and then, kind of have one cash payment that comes out of your bank account. And if you had a slow month, you can pay a little interest and carry some of that balance. So there's definitely use for it, but don't set yourself up for failure. Don't do something that's going to get you in a bind.
I have a question that may be obvious to other people, but does having a business credit card help your credit like personal cards help your credit?
It depends on if you guarantee it personally. If you guarantee it personally, and that's true with any credit or loans that you'll get. And as a small business owner, we may talk about that in a minute or later episode. If you get a loan, just expect that you're going to have to probably guarantee it personally. And we talked a lot about, separating personal and business liability. Your bank's got the one with the money, and it's their rules or their way of the highway. And their philosophy is, if you're not willing to bet your personal on it, we're not going to bet our money on it.
Right.
So expect to have a personal guarantee on that. I mean, when I was in banking, we had sizable companies that were still requiring personal guarantees, just because if you don't believe in what you're doing enough we're not giving you our money.
Yeah. Yep. That makes total sense. All right.
Sorry, one more thing on business credit cards. A lot of, you may not have great credit because they're gonna ask, especially early on, because your business doesn't have credit yet. They're gonna look into your personal information and may use that to approve or deny. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily continue reporting on your personal. Again, personal guarantee would change that. But prepaid cards are an option to build that business credit, where you can essentially just put some cash in, and then you can spend that cash, and then you pay up, to get your balance back up to whatever it was with cash. So it's kind of a loan from yourself, but once you establish a pattern of consistently paying and, making sure you don't get past due, because no one wants to give money to someone they don't know.
Right.
Like, if I don't know how you are with money, I don't know if you're trustworthy, and it doesn't mean anything about anyone. It just means I don't know you.
Yeah.
And it's money. And the bank's the exact same way. The credit card company's the same way.
Yeah.
So if you can't get a credit card and you feel like you can handle one responsibly, go get a prepaid card.
Yeah.
And then
build it up.
Yeah. And then they'll see that you can handle it responsibly, and they'll gain that trust because they'll have that information, and then you can go on to getting like a rewards card or something.
Right. And that was another thing is, if you are getting a credit card, find one that has benefits that work for you. If you fly, try to find a card with miles.
Yep.
So that you're getting something out of it as well.
Yep.
If you travel a lot, gas is so expensive, and who knows what it's going to be, at the end of the summer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the time of filming, there's some geopolitical events that may be affecting fuel prices here, in the near future. So we just certainly don't want to get political on here, but that's a reality no matter what your stance is.
That is for sure a reality with small business owners. We'll probably talk about that at some point.
Yeah, I was like, that's an excellent point, that you may be a small business, but global issues can definitely affect your business.
Yes.
So, you definitely need to be tapped into the news feed. And I know it's rough a lot of times.
Right.
I hate looking at my news feed because it's just...
I make him look at it, and then I have him tell me what is going on.
I tell the necessary / the happy things, because it's kind of a depressing read most days.
Yep. Well, so I'll just give an example of that. Like we all went through COVID, and if you are selling things at a farmer's market or something, if that's your company, if that's your income, and you are not allowed to go outside anymore and do that, that is going to affect your business. So that's an extreme example, but that happened to all of us
Well, and
5 years ago.
yeah, well, here's one that almost just happened to a lot of businesses here in Texas 2 days ago. So Texas is not a really pro marijuana state, but we have a lot of CBD type shops
Right.
and
Yeah.
stuff that
Every shopping center.
yeah, every shopping center. But there was a SB3 that was trying to go through, and it would have like shut down farms in Texas, and it would have shut down like some vape shop. A lot of small businesses that were legally operating. They were doing everything right. They checked all the boxes, and then it was almost just one day your industry's outlawed.
Yep. And that happened probably 2018. I was the marketing director for a vape company, and there was laws coming in where you used to be able to try flavors and you could not anymore, and we didn't know what was going to happen, and you couldn't market anymore.
Yes.
So my job went completely away.
Right.
It came back, all that stuff changed or whatever, but you have no idea what's going to happen, so just stay up to date. That was a me tangent.
Fantastic. I loved it. I loved it.
Instead of you. Okay.
One more. I was just going to tack one point
Sure.
onto the end of that one. That was a great point that if you're in an emerging market, because when you were doing that, the vape thing was kind of brand new. Well, not brand new, but it was really at the beginning of it getting popular.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of uncharted territory. A lot of new industries come out, and while they're pretty small, they don't really get on any regulators, radar. And it gets a little bigger, and then usually just some random individuals upset about it and cause a stink. And then you get new regulations. So if you're in an industry that's kind of a new emerging industry, you need to stay
vigilant.
Yeah, and nimble. You need to be able to pivot quickly and adjust and look at industries that may be, allegorical. Not sure what the word is there.
I don't know what we're talking about.
But so for the vape companies, cigarette companies got advertising shut down decades ago, So that was something that company really probably should have been at least looking at preparing for. What happens if we can't market anymore? Because that's a real possibility. And in new markets, in the early stages, it's the Wild West. And it's super fun, but then people start making money and there's no rules. Someone else wants your money. So the rules start getting made.
All right. So the next thing I have on here is merchant services.
So you've got a few pretty standard options here. Square, I think, is the credit card processor, and Squarespace is a website hosting, I think.
Okay.
Whichever one it is, that I think it's Square. QuickBooks, got Zelle, even.
Cash App.
Keep good records if you're going to be doing some of these cash transfer apps, Cash App, Zelle.
Something we ran into recently, just because your Zelle payment says it is for something does not mean that is proof it is for that thing.
Right. But
that can be faked or fudged or whatever.
You can type anything you want in that box.
Yes.
It can be kind of complicated at tax time, because anybody who's got Cash App has seen probably in the last year, you used to be able to just send cash without a note. Now you have to put a note because they've got AI reading it and making sure that it's not for anything illegal. Like here in Texas, you can't do any online gambling, no sports betting, no nothing. So if you send money from a Texas IP address to a Vegas sports book, the Cash App will flag it and deny it.
Oh man, that's something to know.
Yeah.
So if you are in any kind of industry that has regulations, check when, if you're doing out of state.
Nonprofits really aren't supposed to be doing it at all. We've ran into that before with, something we've experienced. So just be aware of that. If you can avoid these transfers, I know a lot of times there's contractors and stuff that's how they get paid, and that's fine. Just keep good documentation. Have them send you an invoice so that way you can tie it to, that is that person's name. They sent them an invoice for this. So,
and if you're doing like the Square for in person, like at a farmer's market or something like that, I think that has invoicing that goes along with it.
Well, and that's not as regulated.
Okay.
It is just we're so much more used to it. because you're running a credit card kind of here at this point, and yeah, there's usually a receipt that goes along.
Yeah.
Because if you're selling there, there's no, well, you go ahead and take it, and we'll bill you, and you can pay me in 30. There's not a lot of credit purchasing like
Right.
that. So it's we know what we sold. We've got a record of it. Our software, because Square or any of those credit card processors, you're going to put in when you do it what it's for, and that record's going to exist.
Okay. So if you have questions about any of that stuff, let us know. We'll research it up and give you all kinds of options. We do have an episode coming up about different software, so that'll cover lots of different items. But
And
if you
Oh, no, sorry, go ahead.
if you have any questions about anything that we ever talk about, please let us know. You can put something in the comments, or if you have a specific question for your specific business, please email us, info@havensconsulting.com, and we'll talk about it on here if we think it applies. We won't use your name or anything if you don't want us to. Next thing I have is online banking platforms. So things like transaction tracking, bill pay, transfers. Talk to me about that.
A lot of these are through third-party apps. So, like, if I want to send a cash transfer from our bank, for instance, it's through Zelle.
Yeah.
If I want to do bill pay, I don't even know who that app is. The third-party software. It's usually an integration of those things. They can be useful if it's one of those things that it's going to work for certain personality types. It's not for others. So, if you sounds like something that might help you out, and it's free or a price you're willing to pay, and there's no long-term commitment, give it a shot. And then if it doesn't work for you, just don't.
Okay. All right. Short and sweet, not
Which is
something
rare from me.
Yeah, not something normal from Kenneth. Okay. Let's get into the accounting systems now. So, let's talk about cloud-based accounting software.
That's going to be pretty much your only option now.
So, what do you think about QuickBooks?
I have a love-hate relationship with QuickBooks. If you're starting out, it's not a bad software. You can get their, I think it's called Ledger. It's their new smallest tier. I think it's $10 a month. I'm not a spokesperson for Intuit, by the way. I want to make that very clear.
Unless they're willing to pay.
Going to need to be a lot. I don't hate QuickBooks, but I think my biggest issue with QuickBooks is they're not real quick to resolve bugs or roll out new features. Anyone that's dealt with Intuit, long term, if you've been in the forums and the questions and people asking for, what I would consider some pretty basic features, and those comments are 4 or 5 years old, and that feature still doesn't exist. That can be frustrating. For most businesses that are starting out, though, it's going to have everything you need, and it's going to do everything well enough to cover your business. There's other options, and I'm not going to say there's better options. There's different options, and they're, depending on your situation, one's going to be better than the other. If you got high inventory, I would not recommend QuickBooks. Go a different route. Go maybe Xero. I don't know this, but I'm pretty sure their inventory system is much better. QuickBooks is almost like tacked on, and it doesn't have a lot of the features that I would like. You don't really get to pick how you cost things. Like, I think you can pick LIFO and FIFO, which is last in, first out, or first in, first out. But, like cost averaging, it's not an option. So it's just not a very robust system. But for the people that we use it. Yeah. I mean, that's our internal software. Yeah.
It works.
It works.
And most people know at least some.
Right. And it is pretty intuitive. So it's not that difficult to learn. I'd say most of the challenges I see people have with QuickBooks are not really a QuickBooks issue. They're more of a general accounting knowledge issue.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, we have some on our checklist: Xero, Zoho Books, FreshBooks, and Wave Accounting. Do you know much about those, or? Not
a whole lot. I've definitely looked into them because we want to make sure our clients are getting the best advice possible. So we've done some research. Xero is pretty popular, and it's pretty popular among accountants as well. So the back end people that use it and the front end users seem to like it. I think it's a little more technical, not much, but maybe a little more technical than QuickBooks. just do a little research, and you can kind of get caught back up to where you need to be to run it. I Zoho, FreshBooks, Wave, I've seen those. Haven't really dove into those a lot, so I don't want to recommend either way. They may be great, they may be, crap. So
what you're saying is do your
do your
research.
research, and if you want to know more about some of the softwares, let us know. I'll dive in there, and usually the accountant version is free, and I can get in there in the back end, and I can play around and figure out and see if one of them does something better than others.
All right, that sounds great. Something that I think everyone probably has knowledge of, has heard of, has worked with somehow is spreadsheets through Excel or now Google Sheets,
Yep,
I
Google
think.
Sheets, and then I think Apple's is just called Sheets.
Mm.
They're on your iOS platforms, so they're all spreadsheet programs.
So if you are just starting out, what are some ways that you can use Excel to help you stay organized?
I've definitely had clients that, very small starting out. They don't even really have a lot of transactions. They're just kind of in the developmental phase. And I'll tell them, keep track of your accounting in Excel. You don't need to pay a monthly subscription for that. Now, I don't advise doing that in the long term because that is going to be a little more difficult to upload. You want to keep a financial record. We've got some resources on document and record retention, best practices there, and some, legal requirements. But trying to get that, if you've got 2 years of that and your business starts getting a little more complex, you've been running out of there, and then you need to switch to an accounting software. You can't just upload it in that format. You're going to have to reformat all that data or just keep it separate and use two. And that can be a little complicated. But I'd say once you really feel like, okay, now we're about to start going, at least go get that $10 a month subscription. There's a lot of coupons out there. Talk to a CPA. They can usually get you a deal.
Or, hire someone to set up your accounting for you and train you on how to use it. That's something that we do here, but there's lots of different places that you can have them set it up accurately and show you how to use it.
Yep. We've definitely got a lot of training on general accounting knowledge and then how to use their pro software as well. So
for almost every, I would say, new project that we start at Havens Business Services, I started off Excel.
Yeah.
Almost always. When we started up the podcast episode, lists and orders and all of that are on Excel. And as we get farther through it, you need more software, you need more functions. But starting out, Excel was great.
Yeah, you can do a lot with Excel. I mean, I've seen people build entire pieces of. I worked for a very large construction company that built their internal. It was our ERP. It handled invoices, account, all that out of Excel. It was an Excel-based program. It was slow, but it worked.
Yeah.
It was not a popular system. So, I mean, it's definitely versatile. It's definitely robust. But when you start getting into some more technical areas and features of that, you're going to need to get real comfortable with Excel. I think, both hired several employees that had Excel experience, and that meant they've opened an Excel workbook before.
Yes. Did not know what Control V was,
Right. Yeah.
But then you've got people like Kenneth and another guy we used to work with who can write crazy code stuff I didn't even know was possible in Excel. Things I never would have imagined. He knows what all the buttons are. I mean, I know what 10, maybe 20 buttons do.
Yep.
And he knows what all of them do. It's crazy. So I would say your accounting software, you think QuickBooks is probably the best that there is right now for someone first starting.
If you don't have any other knowledge and you don't really want to go spend 5-8 hours really researching which one's best for you, just grab QuickBooks.
Okay.
I mean, it's probably your best bet. There's going to be things about it that's going to frustrate you, and that's
everything.
That's
probably.
everything. If you wanted to go do the research, you can get in there, and there's probably a different software that may be does everything you need it to do. It has a better price point, or it does things that QuickBooks doesn't do that you would be very useful for you to do.
Yeah, and if you have suggestions, leave them in the comments. Let people know that.
Yeah, if you had a good or bad experience with the software, let us know.
Yeah, we would love that. I would say, so first starting out, new business, just trying to keep track of things, you can use Excel or QuickBooks just in the beginning to make sure that you're tracking everything. If nothing else, use a spiral notebook and just write it down. It's better than nothing.
Yep.
Use one notebook.
Yep.
Use that notebook for everything that you do.
And nothing else.
Yeah. If you start and you have this here and that there, you're going to lose something. And then when you start doing more business and you have to hire out, which we hope all of you get so big that you have to hire out.
Absolutely.
And then maybe so big that you have to hire your own staff of accountants. They need somewhere to start.
Right.
So even just
Excel or
Notepad is better than nothing.
Save your receipts.
Even if that's putting them in
a box
or a salon bag from your salon, which is most stylists.
I have definitely prepared several tax returns based off a leopard print plastic sack full of receipts.
That's right. Gotta love our stylists.
We do.
Yeah. I mean, I was one of you. Okay. So when you're looking for accounting software, you want to look at what?
If you're selling products, you want a system that's got good inventory management. If you do a lot of invoicing, you just want a robust, versatile invoicing system. If you're service-based like we are, you got a lot more flexibility because we don't jack with inventory. We don't really have a lot of fixed assets. Our accounting is pretty easy compared to other accounting that I've had to deal with. Just look for things that you're going to need. And you may not know what all those are in the beginning, and that's fine. You're going to make mistakes. We're here to try and limit those as much as we can. But if you're not making any mistakes, then you're not moving near fast enough.
That's right. That's right.
Look for things that apply to your industry, to your business. Go to Reddit. Say, hey, I've got a roofing company, and there's 1,000 of those in Texas because we get wind and hail. And every time there's a storm, you'll get 10 guys knocking on your door. Do you need a new roof?
Yep. I love Reddit. I go to Reddit all the time. Be careful. People are mean, but
not all the information, anyone can post information. So but it's a great launching point that you can go, oh, I didn't know about that. Let me go research that thing.
So you can also search in Reddit for anything that we talk about, anything that you're wondering in your business. And then you can just read through things and get some ideas on where to start. Always do your own research.
Absolutely.
And if you feel uncomfortable in any way,
call a professional.
Yes, call a professional. So one thing I think most people need to start with, I don't know if you want to talk about this today or not, is a brief overview of what a chart of accounts is.
Okay. We will do a more detailed episode on this for sure, but we can absolutely give them a little bit of a starter here. I tell every client this: don't learn an account, make your chart of accounts. We will make an account for every transaction. Just don't do it. That's not true. We'll get it done. We'll just do it slowly and tediously. When you put in what your industry is, like in QuickBooks, you can put your industry, and it is going to give you a chart of accounts that
a standard base.
Right, for your industry. You are probably, as a startup business, not going to need 90% of those accounts. Don't make your accounting any more complicated than it needs to be. And how I generally instruct people on that is, who is the audience for these financials? Who's going to be looking at these? You are, as a business owner. So that's definitely an audience. Maybe your bank. If you've got loans, they're going to want, quarterly, monthly, annual financials, whatever. Or if you've got investors, they're going to want to see them. So don't include data that no one's going to look at. Keep it simple. Use what you need, disregard the rest, because it can get complicate it. There's definitely some pitfalls I see a lot of new businesses, with their accounting fall into. A couple off the top of my head, not processing undeposited funds and putting their entire loan payment against principal.
Okay.
You've got interest in there and stuff. So, and then that stuff builds and
Right.
reconcile. Like every
For
month.
our newbies who don't have any accounting experience, what does reconcile mean?
When you get your bank statements, your statements for any of your accounts, loans, credit cards, banks, anything, make sure your balance ties out. Just make sure they're the same. And you're going to have transactions that happened and won't clear to the next one. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Look for major anomaly. If you've got a transaction that hasn't cleared in 5 months, it's probably erroneous or duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wait 5 years before you do this,
You are not going to know.
You're going to pay someone like me a lot of money to figure it out for you.
Mm-hmm.
So just stay on top of your book. I can't emphasize how important that is. The amount of money I have seen people that they could have saved.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's good for us.
Yeah.
But if they had just kept good records from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it later.
Yeah.
I'll do it in a minute. I got to do this. And as a business owner, you're going to stay busy like that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, you are. Because I can tell you right now on your to-do list, a quarter of it is things you don't need to do.
At least.
You don't need to do them. I think most of you probably know what those are.
Uh-huh.
But you don't want to forget or something. This is a priority. Put your books at the top.
Yep. Keep records of everything.
Yeah.
If you purchase something, keep those purchase documents. If you have a loan, keep your loan documents. Keep your statements.
Yeah.
Keep your receipts. Keep that paperwork. Even if it's not organized, keep it in one central place.
Yeah.
If you've got to go through and sort it out, it's a lot easier than having to go find it.
Yep. So when we have clients that come in, they've got a huge box of receipts or a bunch of paperwork. I clear out the living room floor. I get out my little boxes and I just sit in the floor and watch Grey's Anatomy and sort through everything.
Yep.
You need some time where you are doing something that's not that hard, but you still need to keep working. Sort your paperwork.
Yeah, I call it cognitive burnout, and I get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually when I leave for the day, when my brain starts not burning anymore.
Yeah.
Do that. It's
Yeah.
a useful task.
Mm-hmm. And you know better than anyone else what that stuff is. Is this food? Is this travel? Is this supplies? You know what it is.
We have
Go for it. Put them in Ziploc bags.
Absolutely.
If you have to.
I know that we ran into this, especially early on when bookkeeping was a more core piece of our business. People would bring you, or you would just get their transactions in, like, say, QuickBooks, and they'd be like, you would ask them what 90% of them were, and they'd be like, well, I thought that's what you were for. And it's like, I don't have your receipts or your documents. I don't know what these, I need you to fill in the blanks. I'm here to restructure it all once I have that information correctly. That's what I'm here for.
But I don't know what you went to Walmart for.
Absolutely.
I don't know what 4x4 is.
Yeah,
Is
or
that,
whatever.
Is that cardstock? Is that lumber?
Right.
I don't know, but you do.
Yep.
So.
And even if it's a messy, mixed up box of documents, that's better than nothing. Now, it's going to be more expensive if someone else sorts that for you, but at least they will be able to answer their own questions.
Yes. All right. Well, that's a little bit about that. I'm sure we will have multiple episodes on bookkeeping, but is there any basic bookkeeping principles that you think people need to know that are the most important?
Those two I talked about earlier. Make sure that you're not putting loan interest or loan fees into your, just if you reconcile that to your loan statement and it's off, you'll know every month. And because part of this is interest. You don't get to write principal of loans off your taxes. You didn't claim the loan as income when it came in. You don't get to use the principal going out as an expense. So that's when I see a lot. People will expense loans because they think cash going out. There's a word that my wife hates. I'm about to say the bad A word here. Accrual. Accrual accounting is what 99% of businesses are. If it's not cash for item immediately every time. You're an accrual based business. If you invoice on terms or you get invoiced on terms, you're an accrual based.
On terms means that they don't have to pay it immediately.
Right. So if you get an invoice and due in 30 days, you're an accrual basis of accounting. We're not going to get into the depth of that.
Because I will go to sleep.
Yep. Most people, and this is the example I use when I'm explaining this to people, our entire experience with money is cash based. If I earned my paycheck the last 2 weeks, but I don't get paid till Friday, I haven't been paid.
Right.
But in an accrual basis of accounting, you have.
Okay.
So like it's hard to get your head wrapped around, but once you understand the why, it makes a lot more sense. So I can do an entire episode on accrual based accounting and
all by himself.
Yep. And then y'all can listen to that if you're having, insomnia.
All right. Well, we talked about some banking information and some accounting software, and we will talk more next time.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Guys. Bye.